a great illustration. I love that. I remember I grew up going fishing with my grandfather, and we had, usually it was just me and him, and we just had such a wonderful time. But there was one time that my grandmother insisted this very distant cousin that I didn't know well, that he go with us. My grandfather was not in favor of that at all. And pretty much everything that happened on that, the tangled line and the this and that, it all happened, and he was not happy at the end of that fishing trip. But what a great memory. Don't miss the mission. When we hear the word mission, we think of several different things, okay? But the word itself means a function or a task. In this story that we read earlier, in this parable, we see Jesus teaching. Okay, well, that's not unusual, right? Because he's always teaching. He's always got a lesson. But what we've been searching for, as we started last week, looking at these parables, is that there's a point. There's a message there. It's not just to tell a story, or not just an interesting, way to pass the time around the campfire or whatever. No, there was a real valid point here. And so what we're doing is we're trying to find that. We see something very interesting, though, as we look throughout this story, but we have to go back to the beginning to really grasp it. If we look back at verse 1 of chapter 14, it says, one Sabbath, when he, and this is being Jesus, went in to eat at the house of one of the leading Pharisees. Look at this. Think about this. He's eating at the table. He's sitting at the table with one that didn't care for him, one that didn't want to hear anything about him. What we see in this is he didn't hide who he was. Okay? And that's very important in the life of a believer, okay? That he did not hide who he was, even in the presence of his enemy. He was not ashamed of his message, even in the presence of his enemy. Those who hated him the most, those who wanted to stone him, those who wanted to kill him and take him out, he spoke the truth to them. Why? Because God desires that none should perish. He desires that all hear the truth. Will all receive the truth? No. But it won't be because they didn't have it offered. And we'll see that in this invitation that the master sent the servant out to give. Okay? The offer was there. The message was there. The opportunity was there. But many said no. That holds true still today. But God says that Jesus will not return until everyone has heard the gospel, until everyone has had the opportunity to say yes or no. The opportunity will be presented, and we'll see that in this beautiful story. God desires that none should perish, that all will hear. And again, not all are going to respond, but all will hear. We oftentimes, though, tend to miss the mission due to the fear, or even greater sometimes, our determination of who will or won't accept. Oh, they wouldn't want to hear anything about that. I'll just go on to someone else. Or, well, they probably would be very, oh no, I don't want to take a chance. They might get upset with me, so I'll just go. But that's not for us to decide. That's not for us to decide. God did not call us to be successful. God called us to be obedient. Oftentimes we base our movement on the success rate. Okay, well, I'll go do this, but only if it'll produce this. Or I'll go do, but that might not be the mission that day. That mission might just be one thing. And if we accomplish that, we did what God asked us to do. But sometimes we begin to get conditioned in life to that where we redefine success, you know. But I've said this before, but it could be in each one of us are on a different mission in this life, although with the same results. So we lead people to the Lord, right? But it could be that people, you know, not everybody's going to be Billy Graham. Not everybody's going to get to lead millions and millions of people, okay? You may lead one. But it may be that one was your assignment. It may be that one was the person that God placed in your life, whether it was 10 minutes ago or 10 years ago or whenever, that might be the one. we tend to change things because and we miss our mission because we're trying to base it on the ways of the world. But friends, this has got nothing to do with the world. This is all about the ways of God. And this is what this beautiful little story is all about. If we look at the servant in this parable, in this story, we find the point of the parable. Because we don't need to reduce his role. This is important, that we don't reduce his role to a mere hired hand, but rather one that has received the privilege to give the invitation to come to the master's table. Think about that for a minute. It's not just that he's the hired hand and this is his job, but rather he's got the privilege of telling others about this banquet. So we begin this, and we see this story that Jesus is sharing with those that are sitting around him that day. The servant in this message, in this story, is the messenger. In other words, he's been tasked with a mission, a job to do, to tell everybody to come to the great banquet. Well, who does that sound like? Sounds like the church, right? That sounds like what we've been given, to tell everybody to come to the great banquet, to come to the master's table. Okay, so he is out to tell them, to let them know it's ready, it's been prepared. He said he goes out and he says, come, because everything is now ready. Let them know that they are invited. Let them know that their attendance is desired. The one who prepared the banquet, the one who is presenting the banquet, is saying, come and join with me. I want you here with me. I want to share this together. I want to have this time together. That sounds great, don't it? It sounds wonderful. We all like to be invited to stuff. Even if we don't go. It's something about that acknowledgement of, you wanted me at your event, wherever it might be, and it could be something you want to do. It could be something, that in the back of your mind you're saying, yeah, thank you, but no way in the world I'm going over there. We that's just real. We do that, right? He's saying, let's enjoy this together. So the servant begins his mission. He's out and he's going to all these people that have been invited. That's important. Life gets busy. How many of us understand that? We all do, right? Life gets busy. Sometimes it's more than others. Sometimes it's created because we want to be at least seen as busy anyhow. We get sidetracked with different things. But all of us here today, and all of us that are listening today, all of us that are his, we need to understand we are the servant in this story. That's us. That's the job we've been tasked with, is to let everybody know, hey, the banquet's ready. The master has set the table, and he's ready, and he's invited you to be here. He's invited you to come. We have a mission, and it is to go and to tell. But here's the question, who are we inviting? Because sometimes we want to limit the audience. Sometimes we don't see the broad picture. But if we understand the beauty and the depth of the Great Commission, we see in Matthew 28, he says, go forth and teach who? All nations. Okay, so there's no exceptions there. There's no exemptions there. He's saying everybody. The great banquet awaits all who will come. The invitation has been given. We see the obedience of the servant. He immediately goes out with the message. He immediately goes out, as he's been tasked to do, to let everybody know that has been invited. Everybody know what is going on. But then we see in verse 18 a harsh reality that still exists right now. It says, but without exception, they began to make excuses. Now think about this for a minute. He's got the greatest news in his heart. I mean, you get to come to the master's table. You get to come to this incredible banquet. And you've been invited. You personally have been invited. I'm coming to tell you. And we can think of the exuberance that he's got here, the excitement that he's got here. But it says all without exception that were invited began to make excuses. All of us at some point in time in our life have been rejected. We all have. Okay, for something and some capacity and some way. Well, the rejection can be disappointing. dang, I really thought they would want to do that, or I thought they'd want to go. It can be discouraging. Now, it can actually be hurtful, depending on how that how that rejection is received. It could be, get away from me. I don't want anything to do with you. It could be all kinds of different stuff. It can be hurtful. It can really bother us, again, depending on how that is presented. But here we see the servant with what he believed. Okay, yes, this is my job, but we can see he's going out. He's telling them this exciting news. The grand banquet is ready. The great banquet has been prepared, and you are invited. We can picture almost the zeal that he's going out and telling everybody, the eagerness in his voice as he's sharing this great news, which, as we see, is met with excuses. We see that it is met with, hey, man, wow, that's great, but look, I just bought this farm, and man, I got a lot to do. I'm sorry, I can't go. Okay. What? Hey, there's your neighbor. He's got an invitation to do. Let me go tell him. Oh, man, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the invite. But listen, pal, I just bought some oxes. And, man, I got to go see how good they can plow. Have you ever met somebody just grasping at straws as reasons not to do something? Okay? And so we're beginning to see how this pattern is going. So the servant is, okay, well, he's busy, and wait a minute, there's Bill crossing the street. I know he's been invited. Let me go tell Bill. And wow, man, an invitation to the master's banquet. That's going to be awesome. I have no doubt about it. But look, buddy, you see Mary over there? Man, we just got married. So we need some us time. We're just too busy. We can't come. Sorry to let you down, but hey, we got some other things to take care of. Maybe another time we're going to pass. So the servant has been sent out with a task to those that were invited. And they all said no. They all said, I'm too busy. I got too many things to do. I don't have time for that. 2023, has that changed? Most people don't realize what the invitation is. Most have not grasped the fact that tomorrow, as is told in Scripture, but as is found in reality, tomorrow's not promised. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. And that's not being morbid. That's reality. So they were all too busy. And the servant returns with what I have to believe, maybe possibly a heavy heart. And he had to say, nobody's coming. They're all too busy. Nobody accepted the invitation. Nobody had time. Everybody was too busy. I listened to a testimony from an evangelist several years ago, and he said he went to India, and he preached a 5-day revival. 100,000 people every night. The stadium was just swarming with people. At the end of the invitation, or at the end of the service, he would give them the invitation. Not one person ever came forward. Not one person ever said anything. He was beat to death by Thursday night thinking, man, what are we doing? I mean, yeah, they're hearing me, but there's nothing happening. Friday night comes, the last night. One person out of the now 500,000 people that have come through this week, one guy came down that aisle. One guy came and surrendered his heart to the Lord. Well, that one guy was Ravi Zacharias, who went on to be one of the greater Bible teachers that there was. And he's going on to be with the Lord now. But that was his mission. What if he'd have quit on Monday? He had the invitation to the banquet, and he kept giving it out, although everybody was too busy. Everybody had a farm to plow and a new wife to go meet and they had all this stuff. We see it all the time, and it can be very discouraging. And let me tell you, from a pastor's side, from this side, it can be very discouraging when you feel like this is not going anywhere. And it's not about being swarmed and mobbed, and it's not about that, but it's about you just wonder. That's one of the tools of the enemy that he gives all of us as believers. You're not making a difference. You're not helping anybody. That's what he wants to do. He wants to stop us from giving the invitation to the banquet. But here's what we need to remember. The table is still set. God didn't take up the plates and put them back in the cabinet and said, oh, well, that's not what happened. And we see that in this beautiful story. We go out to share. We can hear all the excuses under the sun. It's almost an automatic response. There's an old gospel quartet song, and the chorus said, excuses, excuses, you'll hear them every day. The devil, he'll provide them. If the church, you'll stay away. When people come to know the Lord, the devil always loses. So to keep those folks away from church, he offers them excuses. That's true. Okay? I got too much to do. And that song goes on and says, in the summer it's too hot, in the winter it's too cold, and it just, the preacher's too loud, he's too bold. It just goes on. It's kind of a comical thing, but it's funny because most things that are funny are actually real. There's more comical things found in reality than there is in fiction, right? Because we don't want to believe that it's real, but you're like, yeah, I seen Bob do that the other day, or my grandma used to do that. I mean, we all have those stories, but here we understand and we see he's facing what is still real right now all the time. But as we learn through the disciples, again, God does not demand success, but rather he asks for faithfulness. Jesus said, go out and tell. And he sent them out, the 2 by 2, and he sent them all over the place, and they came back and like, nobody, it ain't working. He said, where people will listen, stay. Where they won't, knock the dust off your feet and keep going. You did what I asked you to do. You told them. That's all I ever asked you to do. In the Great Commission, it says, go forth and tell all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe that which I taught you. What is important about that in that whole thing? Okay, go. That's the key word. And the next one's observe. I need to see what Jesus taught. He said, teaching them to observe. That's see what Jesus taught. What did he teach? Love God and love one another. That's visible. We can see that. He's saying, that's all I'm asking you to do is go show me. Invite people to the banquet by letting them see me shine through you. That's important that we miss that. That we can't miss that. Don't miss our mission. God is asking for faithfulness. But here the servant, he tells the master, listen, no one accepted the invitation. No one's coming. They're all too busy. I mean, I told them, but they said no. They were too busy. They weren't concerned about being here because they had too much to do. They had too many things going on. And the master responded. He says, go back. Go back out again. But this time, find those that didn't expect to be invited. Here's where we get caught up. Sometimes because we determine they wouldn't want to hear it, or I don't want to talk to them, or I'm not sure. What's that? That's the heart of Jonah. God said, go to Nineveh, but I don't like Nineveh. I don't want to go. But the master said, go back out. Find the blind and the lame and the poor, and go tell all of them they're invited. They're invited to the banquet too. We see so many today. If you look around enough, there are so many, and maybe we even know some. Maybe we've been there too, that says, I'm not worthy of such an invitation. I'm not worthy of such a wonderful inclusion into something so special. I am completely incapable of being seen as one who could be part of such a great banquet. I've done this. Yeah, I've done that. You don't know all the wrong that I've done. I mean, I've done this, I've done that. I don't have the right clothes, or I don't have the right this or that. I've been divorced, or I've had an addiction, or I stroke. What are all of those things? Excuses. We've all had down some kind of road that we've traveled that maybe wasn't good. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something immoral. It could just be a rotten attitude. It could be all kinds of different things. But God doesn't want to hear our excuse. Because an excuse is oftentimes permission to lie. That's what we're looking for. I've got this, I've got that. But do you? Do you really have a farm to plow? Did you really just buy some oxes? Most people would say no. But seriously, we're grasping, we're looking for something all the time to make an excuse not to do something when it's not really there. The heart of the matter is, I don't want to. And that's the hardest part to overcome, right? Because that's me. But Jesus said, deny you and follow me. Because when we begin to follow him, we begin to see why. Because it's leading us to the banquet. It's leading us home. It's letting others see there's a better way to do this. You don't have to stay over here. So the master says, go out and tell those. We all have heard those excuses. But what we need to understand is the invitation to the banquet, it didn't have conditions. It just said, come. It just said, come. It doesn't matter if you're in the ditch or if you're in the penthouse. I'm inviting you to come. My servant, my one has come to let you know we're available. We want you here. The door is open. But the key word that was given to the servant and the key word that is given to us is go. Go. And let them know. It wasn't to go out and collect resumes. It wasn't to go out and run credit checks. It was to go and tell them. But we often miss our mission because we try to look for the qualified. We try to look for those that may seem interested or those who may be a little more likely candidates. But what we see in this story, the point of this parable, if you will, is that is exactly who God asked first, and they said no. Jesus rebukes the church of Laodicea and says, you think you got it all figured out. You say that you have need of nothing, but the whole time you can't see that you're blind, you're naked, you're wretched, and you don't have me. Think about that verse. I got it all figured out. I don't need anything. What are we leaving out? What's the most important equation? I am following me. And as I've shared with you many times from this platform to this floor, nobody in my 54 years has carried me down more wrong roads and got me in more trouble than me. I did it. I did it. And can blame everybody else in the world, but it's just like Jonah when he's sitting in the whale. I put me here. That's a hard thing to admit. We don't want that. But see, the servant here is carrying out the message. He didn't get conditions. Hey, go find all the people that wear red hats. Or go find all the people that drive blue cars. Or go find... He didn't say that. He said, go out and find everybody. Go get them and bring them to me. I want them here around my table. And so he says, but there was no but. There was no but. We hear, I'm too busy. I'm all good. I got it covered. I don't need that. But the master said to the servant, okay, let's find those who don't have it all fixed yet. Let's find those who do have a need. Let's find all those who don't have it all figured out. And let's let them know they are welcome. That sounds like the invitation of Jesus, don't it? You know, bring them to me. You know, and it tells in many of his travels that those who were maimed and blind and sick, they all came to him. And what were they? They were healed. They were made whole. They were made complete. They came to the banquet table. They accepted the invitation. Friends, that's our job. That's what God has called us to do, is to let them know. The master here is saying, tell them I want them here. Tell them they will be more than appreciated. They will be taken care of. They will be served. They will take. So the servant goes and he comes back and he said, I did what you asked me to do. But there's still room. There was still room. We got this big table and it's not full yet. All these ones came, but there's still more room. The old hymn said, there's room at the cross for you. There's room at the cross for you. Though millions have come, there's still room for one. There's room at the cross for you. There's still a table. There's still a seat. Just like you've heard me say many times, if we look across the auditorium, no, not every seat is full. But every seat is an opportunity. Every time we're together, we have an opportunity to put one more there. Every time we have an opportunity to go out with the Master's invitation, we have a chance to put one more there at the grand banquet. When we think of this beautiful, beautiful message, what the Master says here to the servant, he says, go back out and find some more because I want my table full. How awesome is that? How beautiful is this message that we see? I mean, he says, I want my house full. I don't want any empty seats at all. This goes back to the commission. Go forth and tell all nations. Let everybody know. Because why? God desires that none should perish. Friends, we live in oftentimes what seems to be some very chaotic and very confusing times. We see all kinds of things that we oftentimes shake our head at. But what we need to understand is distraction takes us off our mission. See, the distraction of the enemy today is to get you to focus on the nonsense, to get you to focus on the loud noise and lose focus of the tune, lose focus of the song, lose focus of the message. Because that sometimes is lost. Sometimes we miss our mission because we're over here looking at this and the answer's over here. But the thing is, the answer's always been right there. You know, Jesus, as he's talking to the Pharisees and all the different ones that want to stone him, he's the answer. He's been standing in front of them this whole entire time, and that's what he's trying to get them to see. I've been right here. Nothing's changed. It's you. You're the one that won't accept the truth because you want to find your own truth. We see it all the time in the world today, developing a this or that or whatever. But here, we see the Master saying he wants his banquet hall filled to the brim. Is that possible? Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 25 says, wherefore he is able. I want you to hear those words, friends. He is able also to save them to the uttermost. There is nobody God can't reach. There is nowhere that God can't reach. He says, save them to the uttermost who will come to God by him, seeing he, being Jesus, ever lives to make intercession for them. The servant had a mission. Go. That was his mission. That's our mission. Go. Well, Pastor, I don't know where to go. Just listen. He'll show you. Just listen. He'll tell you. Paul will even say, if you don't have the words, the Holy Spirit will give them to you. So we don't have any excuses. Moses tried to get out of it. Well, I'm not this. I'm not. God didn't say, I didn't ask you if you would or if you could. Will you trust me? I'll show you. I'll show you. We wrestle with that. You know, I wrestled with it. God, I'm a terrible public speaker. I'm nervous. I'm scared to death to be in front of people. I said, I didn't ask you that. I'm asking you if you'll trust me. And I'll show you. I'll give you what you need. Friends, it's just fact. And so the servant had a mission. Go. And that's exactly what he did. And he said, go and tell all who will come because the banquet is ready to be received. We look at the chaos of the world, and I put this out in a writing earlier this week. And all the experts and all the prognosticators of all the chicken noodles are running around, the sky's falling, and all the attention grabbers running about everything's coming to an end and this that. But here's the thing, friend. Jesus said very clearly, nobody knows that. At the time, he said, I don't even know. He said, the Father knows. When the Father gives the instructions, then we'll take care of all of that. So do we do ourselves any good, and do we do those that we're giving the invitation to any good if we're walking around in a frenzy and again, the sky is falling, we're scared to death, we don't know what's happening, everybody's hiding under the chair? No. Here's how we be ready. Accept the invitation. You've been invited. There's a seat for you at the table. When we receive that, when we know that that's been secured, that's been taken care of, then I'm prepared. I've received the invitation, therefore I'm going. So whether it's today or whether it's tomorrow or if it's 40 years from now, it's in God's time. For me to be all in or not about it doesn't do me any good, because what it actually does is it reduces my effectiveness. I'm not able to help you because I am in a knot. I'm worried to death. Well, I don't help anybody. Not at all. And so we have to understand the enemy's job to steal, kill, and destroy is to kill your attention, to kill your witness, to steal, your joy, all the different things we can imply, all different stuff to this. But what it ultimately does is it stops us from our mission. And our mission is to go. Our mission is to share. It may not always be by words, but it's always by how we live. Always, every single time. How do people see? You know, how do they witness him? Through you, through me. That's real. That's not about performing miracles and walking on water. That's about living out who he is, his compassion, his love. Jesus told them, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. It was not being offensive or blasphemous. He's saying, this is the nature of God, that I care enough about you to tell you the truth. I cared enough about you to come here to save you. Wow. Think about that. So the servant is out and he's telling everybody, and the master says, go tell some more. The table's not full yet. So go tell all. The banquet is ready to be received. It's prepared. And here's what's important. You are welcome. Many times today in this life, a lot of people don't feel welcome. You know, I've even, and sadly, and again, I don't say this to be critical or mean, but I've even seen churches on, you know, with signs that says, all welcome, but that's not true. But it should be. It should be. It almost don't even need to be a sign. It ought to be a given, right? If you come through the house of God, if you come in the door, you're welcome. Your ways might not be welcome, but God will fix that, right? That's just true. And so we see here, he said, you're welcome. You've been invited by the master. That's so important. The point of the parable, don't miss your mission. Don't miss your mission, because the banquet table is not full. And this is so important as we live out in these days. Could we call them last days? Sure we can. It's been there since the ascension. I mean, so this has been a while, right? So this is not a new prophetic, enlightening of it. It's been going on. Ever since Jesus went back to heaven, it's been the last days, right? Because there's time for preparation. And 1 Peter says that God is not slack concerning his promise, meaning it'll take place. But he says, but he's waiting. He's waiting because he desires that none should perish. Why am I so repetitive about that? Because he waited on me for almost 30 years. Maybe some of you he waited on. You know, I've done nursing home ministries for years. There were people that we led to the Lord that were 99 years old. They were getting ready to step into eternity almost on their last breath, and they waited till the last minute. Don't do that. Accept the invitation now. Don't miss the mission. The banquet table is not full. Don't quit inviting. Don't quit telling others about Jesus. That is our call in this life. That is our mission, if you will. We'll hear all the excuses that there are. There's no question about that. But here's what you need to understand. It's just around the corner. Around the 100 excuses you've heard, just around that corner might be your mission. It might very well be the one that you were called to see. It might be the next encouragement to keep you going. It might be what lights your fire to get you going. The next victory, the next soul added to the kingdom is right outside of that door. Maybe it's sitting right inside of here this morning. We don't know. As I've said countless times, and I'll say countless more, if you don't quit, God won't quit. I believe that with all my heart. The banquet table still has empty chairs. And the master says, go. Don't miss the mission.